Ethan Carter rolled over in bed, the early June sunlight streaming through the blinds of his cozy home in Burlington, Vermont, the faint smell of fresh-cut grass drifting in from the open window. It was Father's Day, a day he'd always cherished, not for the fanfare, but for the small, heartfelt moments with his family. Ethan, a 44-year-old graphic designer who'd worked remotely for the past 5 years, had built his life around being there for his kids, 13-year-old Sophie and 10-year-old Caleb. He'd spent countless mornings driving them to school, cheering at Sophie's debate tournaments, teaching Caleb how to ride a bike in the cul-de-sac, and every Father's Day, he'd wake up to their giggles, a tray of slightly burnt toast, and a card covered in glitter. His wife, Natalie, a 40-year-old marketing consultant with a knack for closing deals, always made the day special, or at least she used to. This year, though, something felt off. For weeks leading up to Father's Day, Natalie had been dropping hints, her voice a little too bright, her smile a little too wide. "We've got a big surprise, Ethan. Don't plan anything," she'd say, winking at the kids, who'd giggle and nod. Caleb even whispered once, "You're gonna love it, Dad." With a grin that melted Ethan's heart, he didn't need anything extravagant, just his family. Maybe a lazy morning with pancakes and a Marvel movie marathon. But the anticipation had him buzzing. He'd even joked with Natalie the night before, "What's the big plan? Am I getting a new grill?" And she'd laughed, a sharp, quick sound that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You'll see," she'd said, before turning away to scroll through her phone. Now, as Ethan blinked awake, the bed beside him was cold, no tray of toast, no whispers from the hallway, just the hum of the air conditioner and an eerie stillness that made his stomach twist. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, expecting to hear the clatter of dishes or the kids arguing over who got to pour the orange juice. But the house was silent. He pulled on a faded Burlington Bees hoodie, one Sophie had picked out for him at a local game last summer, and shuffled down the hall. Sophie's room was empty, her bed neatly made. Caleb's was the same, toys untouched. Ethan's heart started to race. Maybe they were in the backyard, setting up a surprise, he thought, trying to calm himself. But the backyard was empty too, just the swing set swaying lazily in the breeze. He checked the garage. Natalie's SUV was gone. No note on the counter, no text on his phone, nothing. By 11 a.m., Ethan was pacing the living room, his confusion turning to unease. He'd called Natalie twice, then Sophie, then Caleb, all straight to voicemail. Maybe there was a mix-up. Maybe they'd gone to pick up something for the surprise, he told himself. But the silence was suffocating. He sank onto the couch, the same couch where he'd watched Caleb draw his first Father's Day card years ago, and opened Instagram, hoping for a clue. That's when he saw it. Sophie's story. A boomerang of a latte clinking against a mimosa, followed by a video panning across a sunlit table at a trendy Burlington cafe. There they were, Natalie, Sophie, Caleb, and Natalie's brother, Ryan, all laughing, raising their glasses. The caption sliced through Ethan like a blade. "Best Father's Day ever. When Dad's not here." Faced with tears of joy, the emoji felt like a slap. His chest tightened, his breath caught. He replayed the video, hoping he'd misread. But the laughter, the clinking glasses, the words on the screen were undeniable. Ethan sat there, frozen, the phone trembling in his hand. The hoodie Sophie had bought him suddenly feeling like a cruel irony. His family was celebrating Father's Day without him, mocking him publicly. He didn't call, didn't text. He just stared at the screen, the weight of betrayal sinking in. The day he'd looked forward to for weeks had turned into a nightmare. And as the afternoon sun climbed higher, Ethan realized he didn't even know if they'd come home, or if he'd want them to. The glow of Ethan Carter's laptop screen cast a pale blue light across his face as he sat on the couch in his Burlington home. The Father's Day sun dipping low outside, painting the living room in shades of orange and shadow. It had been hours since he'd seen Sophie's Instagram story. The boomerang of clinking glasses, the laughter of his family at a cafe without him, the caption, "Best Father's Day ever. When Dad's not here." Faced with tears of joy still burning in his mind like a fresh wound, Ethan hadn't moved much since, his Burlington Bees hoodie still clinging to his shoulders, the fabric a reminder of happier times when Sophie had cheered at a game and handed him the sweatshirt with a proud grin. Now, that memory felt tainted, hollow. Just like the house around him, Natalie and the kids hadn't come home. No calls, no texts, just silence. The kind of silence that screamed louder than any argument ever could. Ethan's initial shock had morphed into a gnawing need to understand, to piece together why his family had turned Father's Day into a cruel joke. He wasn't the type to lash out. Never had been. He was the guy who'd sketch superheroes for Caleb's birthday cards, who'd stay up late helping Sophie with her debate prep. But this betrayal, was a puzzle he couldn't ignore. He opened his laptop, the familiar hum of the device grounding him as he logged into their shared Google account. Natalie had always been careless with tech, never signing out, probably because she didn't think Ethan would ever snoop. He wasn't proud of it, but the sting of that Instagram caption gave him no choice. He scrolled through her search history first, his heart sinking with each entry. Father's Day brunch spots Burlington, cute family captions for Instagram. And then, chillingly, how to deal with a clingy husband. The words hit him like a slap. Clingy. Was that what she thought of him? The man who'd rearranged his entire career to be home for the kids, who'd cook dinner every night so she could chase her marketing deals. Ethan's hands trembled as he clicked into her email, his breath shallow. There it was, a thread with her brother Ryan. Subject line Sunday surprise. He opened it, each word slicing deeper. Ryan had written, "Make sure Ethan doesn't catch on. We need this day to ourselves." And Natalie's reply, "Don't worry. I told him it's a surprise for him. He'll probably just sleep in and enjoy the quiet." Enjoy the quiet. The phrase echoed in Ethan's head, a bitter taste rising in his throat. They hadn't just excluded him. They'd planned it, orchestrated a peaceful Father's Day without the father. He kept digging, his fingers moving faster now, driven by a mix of hurt and fury. In their shared Google Drive, buried in a folder labeled Work Stuff, was a document titled New Beginnings. Ethan's pulse quickened as he opened it. The contents were a punch to the gut, a checklist, meticulous and cold. Apartment viewing scheduled, June 10th. Lawyer consult, June 15th. Estimate joint account split. And a note that made his blood run cold. If Ethan pushes back, Ryan can step in. Keep kids out of the loop for now. It wasn't just a brunch. It was a trial run, a test to see how life felt without him, a blueprint for leaving him behind. Ethan leaned back, his head spinning, the pieces falling into place with a sickening clarity. But he needed more. He needed to see it with his own eyes. He logged into the home security app, the one they'd installed after a neighbor's car was broken into 2 years ago. Natalie never used it, but Ethan had always kept the footage, just in case. He pulled up the recording from that morning, 7:32 a.m. There they were, piling into the SUV, Sophie in a yellow sundress, Caleb in a little polo shirt, Natalie in a crisp white blouse, her heels clicking on the driveway. She glanced at the house, at the window where Ethan was still asleep, and said something to the kids, her lips moving quickly. They all burst into laughter, a shared secret he wasn't part of. Then they drove off. Ethan replayed the footage, his chest tightening with each loop. The laughter wasn't innocent. It was knowing, mocking. They'd left him behind and laughed about it. He closed the laptop, his hands shaking, the reality crashing over him like a wave. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Natalie had planned to exclude him, to celebrate a Father's Day without the father. And worse, she was already plotting her exit. The New Beginnings document wasn't a what-if. It was a when. Ethan sat in the darkening room, the orange glow outside fading to dusk, the silence of the house heavier now. He thought of the years he'd poured into this family, the late nights designing logos so he could be home during the day, the way he'd always put them first, and for what? To be laughed at, to be replaced. The betrayal wasn't just in the brunch, it was in the intention, the premeditation, the way they'd turned him into a punchline on a day meant to honor him. Ethan didn't cry, but his jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He knew he couldn't confront them yet. Not like this. Not when they weren't even home. But one thing was clear. He wasn't the same man who'd woken up that morning, hoping for burnt toast and glitter cards. He was someone new, someone who'd seen the truth. And as the first stars appeared outside, Ethan made a silent promise to himself. He wouldn't let this go, not without answers, not without a fight. Ethan Carter's pickup truck rumbled through the quiet streets of Burlington as the first stars pierced the Father's Day sky. The weight of Natalie's betrayal, a meticulously planned brunch exclusion, a mocking Instagram caption, and a new beginnings document outlining her exit strategy. Pressing down on him like a stone, he'd spent the evening uncovering the truth on his laptop. Each email, each security camera clip of his family laughing as they left him behind, fueling a fire he didn't know he had. Ethan wasn't going back to that house. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. He drove with purpose, his Burlington Bees hoodie still on, the fabric now a symbol of what he'd lost. His phone buzzed incessantly in the passenger seat. Natalie, Sophie, Caleb, 37 missed calls, a flood of texts he didn't read. He didn't need their excuses, not after what he'd found. He pulled into a small motel on the edge of town, the kind with a flickering sign and a gravel lot. The clerk barely looked up as Ethan paid for a week in cash. Room 14, a musty space with a sagging bed and a window that overlooked the highway. He tossed his duffel bag onto the floor, the bag he'd packed before leaving. Laptop, chargers, clothes, a few photos of the kids he couldn't leave behind. The reality of his decision settled in as he sat on the bed, the springs creaking under his weight. He wasn't just leaving a house, he was leaving a life, one he'd thought was his. Ethan pulled out his laptop again, the glow of the screen a stark contrast to the dim room. He wasn't done digging. Not yet. He logged into their joint bank account, something he rarely checked because Natalie always handled the finances. "You're too busy with your designs, let me take care of it," she'd say, her voice sweet but firm. Now, he saw why. There were charges he didn't recognize. Weekly lunches at a cafe in Montpelier, far from her usual marketing meetings. A $2,000 payment labeled deposit, and a recurring subscription to a dating app. Ethan's stomach churned, the pieces of her new beginnings plan snapping into place. She wasn't just planning to leave him. She was already living a life without him. He froze the account, not draining it, just locking it. A small act of control in a situation that had spiraled beyond his grasp. He needed to protect himself, to make sure she couldn't bleed him dry while she played the victim. Ethan's next move was to call a friend, Dan, a college buddy who now worked as a family lawyer in Burlington. It was late, but Dan picked up on the third ring. "Ethan, you okay?" His voice groggy but concerned. Ethan didn't sugarcoat it. "Natalie's planning to leave me. I found proof. I need to protect myself and the kids." Dan didn't hesitate. "Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring everything you've got." Ethan hung up, a strange calm settling over him. He was taking back control, piece by piece. But there was one more thing he needed to do before the night was over. He drove to a 24-hour diner near Lake Champlain, a place he and the kids used to go for late-night milkshakes after Sophie's debate wins. He texted Sophie, "Meet me at the diner, 10 p.m. Just you and Caleb, no pressure." She replied almost instantly, "Okay, Dad." Ethan arrived early, ordering a chocolate milkshake for Caleb and a plate of fries for Sophie, their favorites. He sat in a booth by the window, the neon sign outside casting a red glow across the table. When the kids walked in, they looked smaller, fragile. Sophie's hoodie pulled tight over her head, Caleb clutching her hand, their eyes puffy. They slid into the booth, Sophie avoiding his gaze, Caleb staring at the milkshake like it might disappear. Ethan spoke first, his voice steady but soft. "I saw the brunch, the Instagram story. I know what Mom said, that I'd be annoyed if you made a fuss. But I also know more." He paused, watching their faces. Sophie's lip trembled, Caleb's eyes widened. "I found emails, a plan. She's been arranging to leave, new apartment, lawyer, all of it." Sophie's voice broke. "We didn't know, Dad. She said it was a girl's thing, that you needed a break." Caleb nodded. "I didn't want to go, but Mom said it'd be fun." Ethan reached across the table, his hand resting near theirs. "I'm not mad at you. I love you both, and no matter what happens with Mom, I'm still your dad. I'm not going anywhere." Sophie started to cry, Caleb too, their small sobs filling the quiet diner. Ethan hugged them, his own eyes burning. He knew Natalie had manipulated them, used them as pawns in her escape plan. But they were still his kids, still reachable. He drove them back to a friend's house where Natalie had left them for the night, promising to call soon. Back at the motel, Ethan sat at the small desk, his laptop open, a folder labeled Reclaim staring back at him. He added the bank statements, the emails, the new beginnings document, every piece of evidence he'd collected. He wasn't just running, He was preparing for a fight, for the truth, for his kids. The neon lights of the highway flickered through the window, and Ethan knew this was just the beginning. He'd walked away from the life Natalie had scripted for him. But he wasn't done, not by a long shot. He'd make sure she faced the consequences of her lies. And as the clock ticked past midnight, Ethan felt a resolve he hadn't known he had. He was ready to reclaim what was his kids, his dignity, his story. The hum of the motel's air conditioner filled the small room where Ethan Carter sat at the desk, the Burlington skyline barely visible through the smudged window as dawn broke on Monday. A day after Father's Day, he'd spent the night preparing, his laptop open to the Reclaim folder, a digital fortress of evidence. Natalie's emails with her brother Ryan, the New Beginnings document outlining her plan to leave, bank statements showing dating app subscriptions and a rental deposit, security. Footage of his family laughing as they left him behind. Ethan's Burlington Bees hoodie lay crumpled on the bed, a relic of a life he was dismantling piece by piece. He hadn't slept, not really, his mind racing with the betrayal that had turned Father's Day into a cruel mockery. But now, he was ready to face Natalie, to let her know he wasn't the oblivious husband she'd taken him for. He opened his phone, the screen lighting up with more missed calls. Natalie's name dominating the list, her latest voicemail a mix of frustration and faux concern. "Ethan, this isn't funny. The kids are worried. Just come home. We can talk." Her voice had an edge, not of guilt, but of annoyance, as if he were the one causing the drama. Ethan hit record on his voice memo app, his thumb steady despite the storm in his chest, and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. "Ethan, finally, are you done playing games?" Her tone was smooth, practiced, the marketing consultant in her taking over. Ethan's voice was low, controlled. "I'm not playing, Natalie. I know everything." A pause, the line crackling with tension. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice pitching higher. A crack in her facade. Ethan didn't waver. "The brunch, the Instagram story, best Father's Day ever. When Dad's not here." "I saw it. I saw the emails with Ryan. The New Beginnings plan, the apartment, the lawyer, the dating app charges. I know you've been planning to leave me." The silence that followed was heavy, a void where her excuses should have been. Then she laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You went through my stuff." "That's low, Ethan," he cut her off. "You left it in our shared drive. You didn't even try to hide it. Did you think I'd just keep designing logos and cooking dinners while you planned your escape?" Her voice hardened. "You're twisting this. It's not what you think. Things haven't been working for a while. You're always so predictable." "I needed space." Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. Predictable. The word stung, but he pressed on. "Space? You turned Father's Day into a test run. You laughed about it. You used the kids. Did they know about the apartment, the lawyer?" Natalie snapped. "Of course not. Why would I tell them something that might not happen?" But her tone betrayed her. It wasn't a denial. It was a deflection. Ethan's voice dropped lower. "It's already happening, Natalie, and I'm not going to let you spin this like I'm the problem. I met the kids last night. They're not pawns in your game. They deserve better." Another silence. This one sharper, more calculated. "So what now?" she asked, her voice cold. Ethan didn't answer right away. He wanted her to feel the weight of her own question. Then he said, "You'll see," and ended the call. The recording saved, a piece of evidence he'd use when the time came. But Ethan wasn't done. He knew confronting Natalie wasn't enough. She'd try to rewrite the narrative, to paint him as the unreasonable one. He needed the truth to speak louder than her lies. He opened his laptop again, drafting a post for the Burlington Community Forum, a place where neighbors shared everything from lost pet notices to school events. He kept it simple, factual. "On Father's Day, I woke up to an empty house. My family went to a brunch without me. My daughter posted on Instagram, 'Best Father's Day ever. When Dad's not here.' I later found emails and a document showing my wife, Natalie Carter, has been planning to leave, with a new apartment, a lawyer, and a life that doesn't include me. I'm not disappearing. I'm fighting for my kids, for the truth." He attached a screenshot of the Instagram story, the New Beginnings document, and hit post. Within hours, the comments exploded. Neighbors he'd known for years, parents from Sophie's debate team, even the owner of the diner where he'd met the kids, all expressing shock, support, Some shared stories of Natalie's dismissive attitude at school events. Others offered to help. Ethan didn't stop there. He sent a private message to both their families, his parents, her parents, Ryan, laying out the same facts, the same evidence. He didn't embellish, didn't curse, just let the truth stand. Natalie's phone must have been buzzing off the hook, because by noon, she posted on her own Instagram a photo of her and the kids from last Christmas. Captioned, "Some people break your heart and expect you to smile through it." A clear attempt to spin the story, but it backfired. Friends who'd seen Ethan's post started messaging him. "Is this true? I had no idea." Even Ryan called, his voice tight. "Ethan, I didn't know she'd take it this far. I thought it was just a brunch." But Ethan wasn't buying it. "You laughed, Ryan, you were in on it." He hung up. The community's reaction was swift. Natalie's carefully curated image, perfect wife, perfect mom, began to crack. Parents at school stopped inviting her to coffee runs. Her sister-in-law unfollowed her on social media. The diner owner even messaged Ethan, "You're welcome here anytime, your wife." Not so much. Ethan sat back, watching the fallout from his motel room. The morning sun now high. He knew this was just the beginning. Natalie would fight back. She always did. But for the first time, Ethan felt the ground beneath him, solid, unyielding. He wasn't the predictable husband anymore. He was the man who'd exposed her, who'd chosen truth over silence. And as the day unfolded, Ethan prepared for the next step. The legal battle, the fight for his kids, the fight for himself. Ethan Carter stood in the doorway of his new rental home in South Burlington, a modest two-bedroom with a small porch overlooking a maple-lined street. The crisp September air carrying the scent of fallen leaves as he watched Sophie and Caleb chase each other through the yard, their laughter echoing in the late afternoon light. It had been 3 months since Father's Day, 3 months since he'd uncovered Natalie's betrayal, the planned brunch exclusion, the mocking Instagram caption, the new beginnings document detailing her exit strategy, and 3 months since he'd exposed her lies to their community. The fallout had been swift and brutal. Natalie's carefully curated image as the perfect wife and mother shattered like glass. Friends and neighbors distanced themselves. Her brother Ryan took a month-long business trip to avoid the drama, and parents at Sophie's school stopped inviting her to events, whispering about the Father's Day incident behind her back. Ethan had served her divorce papers during one of her marketing presentations, a courier walking into the sleek conference room in downtown Burlington, calling her name in front of clients, handing her the envelope with a calm, "You've been served." The moment, Ethan later heard, left her stammering, her face pale, her professional mask slipping. She didn't fight the divorce much after that, perhaps because she knew the evidence, emails, bank statements, the new beginnings plan was airtight, or perhaps because her reputation had already crumbled. The divorce finalized in late August, a clean break with Ethan retaining primary custody of the kids. Sophie and Caleb had chosen to live with him, not because he'd asked, but because they'd seen the truth. "We want to be with you, Dad," Sophie had said, her voice firm, Caleb nodding beside her. Their decision a final blow to Natalie's narrative that she was the stable parent. Ethan had moved into this new house shortly after, a fresh start far from the memories of their old home. The kids decorated their rooms, Sophie with fairy lights and debate trophies, Caleb with posters of Marvel heroes and a small desk for his sketches. Ethan kept his space simple, a bed, a desk for his graphic design work, and a shelf with a few photos of the kids. The Burlington Bees hoodie he'd worn on Father's Day stayed in a box, a reminder of the past he was leaving behind. The first few weeks were hard, the silence of the new house at night a stark contrast to the chaos of his old life. Some nights, Ethan would wake up, his hand reaching for a partner who wasn't there, the ache of betrayal still raw. But slowly, he began to rebuild. He started running again, jogging along the trails of Red Rocks Park, the crunch of gravel under his sneakers a steady rhythm. He took up painting with Caleb, the two of them spending evenings in the garage, laughing over misshapen watercolor landscapes. Ethan even joined a local photography club, something he'd always wanted to try. The weekly meetups at a cafe downtown, giving him a sense of community he hadn't realized he'd been missing. One Saturday morning, while walking through the Burlington Farmers Market with the kids, he met a woman named Harper, a 42-year-old librarian with a warm smile and a love for hiking. She wasn't polished like Natalie. Her hair a wild mess of curls, her glasses smudged, but her laugh was genuine. Her kindness unforced. They started talking over maple creamies, then long walks along Lake Champlain, sharing stories of their pasts, their dreams. Harper didn't push, didn't demand. She just listened. And for the first time in months, Ethan felt seen, not as the man Natalie had discarded, but as the man he was becoming. He didn't rush things with Harper. They took their time, building something honest, something real. The kids adored her, Caleb showing off his sketches, Sophie asking her about books. And as the weeks turned into months, Ethan felt the weight of Father's Day lift. The betrayal that had once defined his days now a distant scar. He didn't hate Natalie, didn't wish her ill. He heard through a mutual friend that she'd moved to Montpelier, taken a lower-profile job, her social media accounts quiet. He hoped she'd find the honesty she'd never given him. But for Ethan, the greatest victory wasn't in her downfall. It was in his own rise. He'd learned to laugh again, to trust again, to be a father without fear. Sundays became a ritual, pancakes with the kids, a hike with Harper, the four of them watching the sunset over the lake. And as Ethan stood on his porch that September afternoon, Caleb's laughter ringing in his ears, Sophie waving at him with a grin, he realized something profound. He'd found a peace Natalie could never take, a life built on truth, on love, on the small, quiet moments that mattered most. He wasn't the man who'd woken up to an empty house on Father's Day. He was the man who'd fought for his kids, for himself. And as the sun dipped below the maples, Ethan knew he was finally home.